Hi everyone, welcome to today's lesson. It's a little bit of a follow-on from the previous series covering a pencil drawing, or a portrait drawing in pencil. And I'm going to be working in charcoal today, just a tiny little stub of a charcoal stick, because we're just looking at head construction, or initial head construction. The kind of simplest way that you could block in different types of heads and heads in different poses. So what I'll be doing is just drawing kind of maybe like 4 minutes something. I've got about 4 I want to do, so 4 or 5 minute block-ins explaining the process. And I'm going to put up the reference I'm using alongside. So all these portrait references are from unsplash.com, which is a good source of royalty-free references if you need them. And there are a lot of portraits on there. The only thing I'd be a bit wary of is quite a lot of them have complex lighting, which is typical of photographic portraits, and it's something I've spoken about in previous videos. So you want to generally look for references that just have a single source of lighting, because it makes drawing and painting from life a lot easier if you're just trying to manage one light source. So if we get started, this first one is a guy with quite long hair and a beard as well. So quite a lot of the head structure is kind of moderately hidden. And what I would look for in this one is, as with all of them, a general suggestion of the shape of a head, but also think about where the back of the head is relative to the hairline. The hair is something we can kind of build over the top of it. We want to think more about the skull shape. With this one, it's a profile, and there's kind of 2 ways that you can think about a profile. So the first is kind of 2 ovals that kind of overlap. So if you have a kind of oval for the skull and then an oval for the front of the face, which I think is quite clear in this one if you kind of think about it. So say we draw in that oval for the skull, then another oval for the front of the face. So that's the front of the face there, top of the head, and that's the jaw connecting back. And you can see that's not a bad rendition of that head. If we start to get a bit more specific to this head, we could connect using a triangle, kind of 3 curved triangle shapes. We get our jawline. From there we can see the neck extending off it. So fairly quickly, we've got those major shapes of the head blocked in. So we've got down to our jawline here, forehead here, top of the head, and back of the head. Now, overlaid over that, obviously, we're going to then, once we start to add in more shapes, we'll get the shape of the hair over the skull, the shape of the beard, and how it ultimately connects. Placement of the ear is often useful, so we can block in a little ear just there. It can be quite good to look for, there's a fairly evident muscle connecting down to the pit of the neck, which is just here. So that muscle there, and then the other one's wrapping from that side. Once you start to block in more of the rest of the figure, you get the shoulders. And as with anything, you're going to go in and correct, so maybe you need to thicken out the neck. You're going to be adding contouring to the front of the face, so this is just a simplification of the front of the face. But obviously we're going to have to mark where the nose goes, mark where the face is, where the jaw cuts out. But these are kind of the main landmarks that you want. So you want this, you can either do it with circles in a profile, or you can just do it with this kind of triangular shape. But you want to block in the skull, look for these neck muscles going to the pit of the neck, because that kind of gives you structure to the neck, edges of the neck, and very often it's useful to kind of try to find the ear within the head, because that'll give you a lot of references, a reference point for the front of the face. But yeah, that's pretty much it for trying to block in a head like this. So you can see how quickly you can get it together. So we're going to move to a different picture now. Try to reuse my tape. As well. So we've got a new piece of paper up now. We'll look for a different head to work with. Try to look for something quite different. So this one's a woman's face this time, and it's a lot more front on. So we could use that kind of two spheres again, because we do have a kind of a semi-profile with it. So that circle's going to be a lot flatter with this one, and then the front of the face there. But quite quickly we could then use that as a foundation for another one of these sort of triangular shapes. We've got, again, we look for the pit of the neck, so pit of the neck's down kind of here, so that side of the neck's flowing to the pit of the neck there, and then this side is connecting here, but the edge of the neck is there. Then we've got our shoulders going off just a bit lower than the chin. So we can start to make corrections to that, so it feels, as a gesture, it feels like the head's probably too square on. So I'm going to erase that a little bit, and I just want to make it feel more like the head has this sort of tilt to it. Back down to the front of the face, and I'm going to cut off that end of the triangle. So we've got our head boxed in, got our shoulders. The neck here is obscured, but we do have a sense of the that muscle running down to the pit of the neck here. And from there again we've got just this general shape, but if we start to think about how we use that shape to carry on the rest of the drawing, it can be used to really quickly So now that we've got the hair blocked in over the top of that basic shape, got the contour of the edge of that face, starts to make sense. The ear's kind of hidden in this one. I was saying it's a useful landmark. And from there we're still thinking about, the reason I wanted to tilt the top of the head is if we look at the eyes travel on this kind of angle, the mouth's traveling on this kind of angle. So the next thing to be aware of when you're working with this kind of quite complex tilt is exactly how much tilt there is, and make sure all of your all of your features line up along that tilt. So if the chin flattens out like it does here, you want to make sure you've got a definite chin. Then you've got your rest of the facial landmarks are all working on that same tilt. So that's a really important thing to look for in this kind of pose, is that your tilt is consistent through the drawing. It's something that people really struggle with when they first start drawing. So you can see how quickly you can do these. So we'll draw our third one, and it's a good approach for that reason it's a good approach if you're working in a life drawing group or a portrait drawing group and you're doing quick poses, because you can really quickly get down a fairly accurate gesture for a face. So let's look for another one. Try look for something a bit different. This one's quite good. So this has fairly complex hair shapes. But again, it's almost going to a profile. The last one we'll probably try to do is a frontal because we've ended up doing a lot of profiles. But again, let's get started. So we're thinking about that kind of rounded off cranium shape, and then approximately that front sphere for the face, then connecting it so you end up with this triangle. From there, this one, the neck slopes back quite far. I've got a shoulder here. So as far as that muscle, that neck muscle goes, it's kind of wrapping like this. As I say, we want to get our ear in reasonably quickly. Something like that's pretty good for the ear. So we've got, that's pretty much our face blocked in now, so that's the edge of our face. There's our chin, top of our cranium, and that's not a bad kind of face skull shape for this drawing, so it's probably come together a bit quicker than the other ones, which is good. You'll find as you warm up, I've done 2 now, so this is my 3rd, and you start to get faster with it. So if we look at how we use this, I'm going to just place the hair over what I've drawn in here. So there's obviously a lot of hair coming out the back. Then sitting a little bit higher than the top of the scalp that we've blocked in before. Kind of coming to the front, then and again we're looking for, so we start to think about where the eyes would go. They're in a tilt from the top of the ear, not quite that much of a tilt, something like that. We've got our nose coming out here, and our mouth there. So again, we've roughly got everything we want blocked into this face now. And if you can get to this point where everything's reasonably well constructed, any adjustments you make, you can easily make. So I add a little bit onto the top of the hair there. You'd obviously erase the initial construction elements. I wanted to simplify that hair there. Yeah, you can erase any marks you've made. If I decided that, say, the chin needed to be lower, I can just lower the chin. It's really easy to make adjustments when something is this simple. So that's why we want to keep it this simple when we first start blocking in. We don't want to think about the specific shape of the nose or the eyes or anything like that. We just want a really nice, solid, accurate rendition of the head. So as an example of a correction, looking at it again, I maybe want a little bit more bulk to the forehead. and then from there I could erase out those portions. Yes, that feels a little bit better. It felt like it was receding too much. So those are the sort of quick adjustments that you can make if you're working this simply. So the final one we'll do is a Frontal portrait. Have a look what I've got. This is not a bad frontal one, so we'll ignore probably ignore the whiskers for this one. But again, you can work in a fairly similar way. So we still want to think about the sphere of his cranium, which is the bulk of the top of the face there. Then from there, we've got the center of the face coming down, and got his chin about here. And then the base of the face is going to be going down to the chin, just straight lines connecting up to that sphere. And then we've got the top of his head. So you can see the sphere forms the core of the face, but then pretty quickly we can start to build on that. So looking at this, he's got his shirt on, but his those neck muscles are kind of tapering in, something like this. Bit of his neck there. They're not always super evident, but they can be quite useful just for figuring out the tilt of the head. He's got his ear back here somewhere. We don't see the other ear. Center of the face is kind of on this side of the head. But yeah, that's pretty much it for blocking in the head initially. And from there we can start to look for, so maybe look for his hairline, kind of the cap of the hair. Hair tends to form a kind of, regardless of the shape, it kind of blocks in the rest of the head. Got his nose. Got his mouth there. And this is probably about the furthest from the reference that I've gone. It's maybe not quite as accurate as some of the others. But that's not too bad. Got his shoulders blocked in down there. So if I look at it and my reference, I probably feel like maybe everything's slightly too squashed down there. So at this point I might get rid of the face, get rid of that skull cap, top of the head. Not too concerned with this bottom of the head. And then just go up a bit higher with it. So you can see I've just got rid of a bunch of simple lines, and I can just go in and add a bunch of other simple lines, or shift them. And that's why I recommend working this way, because it's a good example of how easy it can be to alter something. So it lifts the hairline up a bit and gives me a little bit more space that I'm happier with. Got a bit more space for our brow up there. Yeah, that's not too bad. So I'm happy with that as a basis. Maybe pull the neck out a bit further on that side. But you can see how easy it is to make adjustments. So I can just keep moving backwards and forwards till I'm reasonably happy with how this head is blocked in. And you can obviously keep making adjustments beyond that point. But it's just kind of, this is your initial construct. It's kind of the armature that you hang everything off. And the more accurate that you can get it, the better. So you want to stay at this simple stage with simple lines and just adjust those simple lines, rather than making it really complex really quickly. So hopefully that helps with your portraits, particularly if you've been watching the previous series. And that's it for today. I'll see you guys next week. If you want to watch more, you can have a look through the YouTube channel, and if you click the link through to OCAD, you can sign up for tuition with myself and a bunch of other specialist tutors. You'll get critiques and feedback on your work, which is really useful if you're working along with these tutorials. But yeah, that's it, and I'll see you guys soon.